So if you're a WNBA player, and believe me, I've coached the best. So what kind of impact is this rookie class having in the WNBA?
How do you think Clark is handling this?
I think she's handling great. I think she talks a lot of and she gets a lot of back. So she deserves everything she gets because she gives it as good as she gets it. She's just not built for the physicality of this league. So there's a lot of learning curve. But for these ridiculous fans who had her slotted as the next Diana down, they're out of their mind. Okay, so the kid was set up for failure right from the beginning.
They say revenge works best when it is cold, but sometimes it does not show up as rage, insults, or loud moments. Sometimes it shows up as silence, patience, and a single choice that hits harder than any public blow-up. For Caitlin Clark, revenge did not come through arguments or online drama. It came through control, timing, and a move that quietly rattled the basketball world. Her response was simple and sharp. She turned down a deal worth over $1 million for just 8 weeks of play. From the outside, it looked like effortless cash, the kind most players would grab without blinking. But behind the scenes, that offer carried weight. It was tied to the same figure who once brushed her aside, minimized her talent, and treated her like another temporary name in a long history of players he believed he had already outgrown. Walking away was not about pride alone. It was a calculated flex. The rejection landed on someone who never expected to be told no, especially not by the athlete he failed to take seriously. This goes beyond sports talk. This is not about stats, banners, or highlight packages. This is about authority and how fast it can slip when the game changes direction. Women's basketball spent decades under the same power structure, run by familiar voices who decided what mattered and who mattered. That comfort built blind spots. Change was coming straight at them, and they did not see it until it was too late. Caitlin Clark represented what was next, and the real shock came when she chose independence instead of permission. She did not need approval. She did not need protection. She did not need a paycheck tied to someone else's control. Her momentum was already real, already moving, and already bigger than any single deal.
Clark, step back three. Oh, she hit it and draws the foul. Welcome back, Caitlin Clark. Clark trying to create some airspace. Long three at the horn. Oh!
Basketball was only the surface layer. Influence was the real currency. This moment signaled a shift. Power did not get handed over politely. It was taken through restraint and timing. The decision cost real money, cracked a long-standing image, and exposed how fragile old authority can be when new voices stop playing along. Nothing about this was random. It was intentional, clean, and impossible to dismiss. Every slight added up. Every dismissive remark, every sideways compliment, every moment she was brushed off pushed this story toward one inevitable collision.
This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality of that league, and she's a rookie.
The wild part is Caitlin Clark never chased revenge. She did not have to. She just stayed locked in, kept lighting up scoreboards, kept smashing records, and let time do the work until the same man who overlooked her years earlier showed back up with an offer in his hands. When that moment arrived, there was no pause and no second guessing. What followed was bigger than a game, bigger than any rivalry, and way bigger than money. This was not just about turning down a league opportunity. This was about Caitlin Clark pulling the foundation out from under one of the most powerful figures women's basketball has ever known, using nothing but restraint and leverage. Every legendary downfall starts with a misread, and Geno Auriemma's mistake was not a bad rotation or a loss in March. It was far deeper than that. It was a blind spot, a choice to overlook something right in front of him.
If you're a college player and you're a great college player, like Caitlin was, the delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players by saying she's going to go in that league and tear it apart.
A decision that would circle back in ways nobody could have predicted. Long before Caitlin Clark became the face of the sport, before packed arenas, record TV numbers, and national awards, she was just a kid chasing a hoop dream. Like countless young players, that dream pointed straight to UConn. It was not just a school, it was the standard, the dynasty everyone measured themselves against. a factory for greatness that produced icons like Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, and Brianna Stewart. UConn was power, history, and dominance wrapped into one name. For Clark, it represented the peak, the ultimate destination, the place that defined success in women's basketball. When recruitment rolled around, everything seemed lined up. A generational scorer with deep range and vision, knocking on the door of the most decorated coach the game had ever seen. On paper, it looked automatic, but reality hit different. The connection never formed. The door did not swing open the way people expected. That disconnect would end up shaping everything that followed. What looked like a small miss at the time slowly turned into the turning point of an era, setting the stage for a power shift nobody saw coming. She barely looked back. By her own account, the interest from UConn was never serious. Geno Auriemma's staff made light contact through her AAU coach, a quick call here, a casual check-in there. But Geno himself never reached out directly. He never called Caitlin Clark. He never spoke to her parents. That silence said everything.
This rookie class isn't even one of the best rookie classes in the last 10 years. But they've been put out to be that because the way social media is today.
The message was obvious. She was not a priority. And when questions came up about why, Geno's response showed exactly how comfortable he was at the top. He said he had already committed early to Paige Buchers and did not want two-point guards in the same class. On the surface, that explanation sounded reasonable. Then came the part that crossed the line. Geno suggested that if Clark truly wanted UConn, she should have been the one to call him. Let that sink in. The most accomplished recruiter in women's college basketball, a coach known for identifying elite talent years ahead of everyone else, looked at Caitlin Clark and brushed her aside, then placed the responsibility on a teenager to chase him down. That was not just a missed connection. That was disrespect, the kind that sticks with you. While Geno moved on without a second thought, Clark paid attention. She understood exactly what the situation meant. She was not their chosen star. She was not part of their plan. In his eyes, she did not fit the UConn mold. With that mindset, the so-called ruler of the women's game quietly shut the door. Looking back, it was a door he should have kept wide open. Caitlin Clark was never just another recruit passing through the system. She was not the next version of someone else or a copy of a past legend. She was different. She was a rare force waiting for the right stage. By the time that reality became impossible to ignore, the chance was gone.
Who would have thought that all those years ago back in Des Moines, Iowa, that this would be the case right now? We knew what we had in Caitlin back in Iowa City, and we knew the attention that she was bringing around the Big Ten and in collegiate basketball. But I didn't know how that was going to transcend into the WNBA. And obviously we can see that it's done pretty darn well, and people are excited to see her play at every level.
Clark chose Iowa instead, a program without UConn's banners, without its aura, and without decades of built-in power. What Iowa offered was something else entirely, a place where she could run the show, be trusted, and become exactly who she was meant to be. Geno never showed belief, and that moment became the fork in the road that redirected the entire sport. That early dismissal did not fade with time. It grew heavier. What looked small at first turned into the most costly misread in women's basketball history, not just counted in wins or losses, but in money left behind, fans lost, and attention that UConn will never fully recover. When Caitlin Clark committed to Iowa, few people saw it as the start of something major. Most treated it like a backup plan. Iowa was not UConn. It did not carry a dynasty label or decades of dominance. It was not the school kids circled on their wall calendars growing up. But Clark was not chasing history. She was chasing space. She wanted freedom. A place where she would not be squeezed into someone else's system or treated like a secondary option. At Iowa, she was not one piece of the puzzle. She was the foundation. From the very beginning, the program moved with her, not over her. That level of trust would have never existed at UConn. It started quietly in Iowa City with packed gyms and word spreading fast. Clips of her shots flooded social feeds. Her logo-range threes were not just scoring plays. They sent a message. The game was changing, and she was forcing everyone to keep up. While Geno stayed focused on guarding his legacy, Clark was building something new, possession by possession. The impact showed up in numbers that could not be ignored. Sellouts became normal. Road games felt like events, with crowds showing up just to watch her, even when it meant rooting against their own colors. Ratings jumped, networks adjusted their coverage. Women's basketball stopped being an afterthought and started becoming appointment viewing. None of this happened by luck. Clark did not stumble into stardom. She shaped it. She did not need banners hanging from the rafters to prove her worth. She did not need approval from a coach who overlooked her. She took what Iowa offered and turned it into something powerful. While that rise unfolded, Geno watched from a distance, and instead of acknowledging the miss, he held his ground and leaned deeper into the decision that started it all. He chose arrogance instead of honesty and pride instead of reflection, refusing to acknowledge Caitlin Clark as the new face of the sport. Rather than giving credit, he brushed off her rise and acted like it was something he had already seen countless times. He tried to sell the idea that nothing about her impact was special.
Okay, this kid's coming into the league, and Diana said it best. This kid's in for a rude awakening.
Everyone else knew better. This was different. While UConn clung to a version of dominance that was slowly fading, Clark was reshaping what dominance even looked like. She was not just stacking wins. She was changing where attention flowed, where money followed, and who held influence in women's basketball. Young fans were no longer dreaming about wearing UConn blue. They wanted her number. That shift was something Geno could not manage or control. You can minimize a player. You can talk down her numbers. You can pretend she blends into the past. What you cannot stop is belief spreading on its own. As Clark's reach stretched beyond Iowa, the tone changed. Her name traveled internationally. Coverage followed her into the WNBA. The more visible she became, the more Geno's earlier dismissals started to sound less like confidence and more like resentment. What he once treated as a small oversight was turning into a public reminder that his grip on the sport was slipping. For a stretch, he stayed quiet. That silence could have been an opening. He could have owned the miss. He could have acknowledged what made her special. That kind of honesty might have reshaped the narrative around him. But humility was never part of his approach. Instead, he spoke, and when Caitlin Clark came up, the pattern stayed the same. A quick compliment wrapped inside a subtle downgrade. He would smile and describe her as fearless, say she played like a kid in a driveway. On the surface, it sounded kind, but underneath, it stripped away her brilliance. In his framing, she was not a once-in-a-generation talent. She was just playing around. Her mastery became casual. Her preparation became instinct. Her dominance became something ordinary. He did not stop there. Anytime someone tried to place Clark in her own lane, he pulled her back into comparisons.
There were actually odds on she's third or fourth in betting odds on being MVP at a WNBA.
If Clark was praised for toughness, Paige Buchers was mentioned. If Clark connected with fans, so did Paige. Every compliment came with a tether, a reminder that in his world, the stars still came from UConn. But outside that bubble, the shift was obvious. Clark's rise did not need permission or validation. It kept moving, growing larger and louder, proving that the power to decide who mattered in women's basketball no longer belonged to one voice. This was never random. It was deliberate. A quiet power move meant to keep control of the story. If Caitlin Clark's rise could be framed as nothing special, nothing new, then Geno Auriemma could still act like the ultimate gatekeeper, like her spotlight somehow traced back to his dynasty and his choices. That is the trap of backhanded praise. It only works if nobody is paying attention. But people were paying attention. Fans saw it, analysts caught it, even other coaches noticed. They recognized a pattern, a man who could not offer full respect without bending it, without finding a way to center himself in someone else's moment. Each time he tried, it landed worse. Clark's game did not need conditions. Her dominance did not need side-by-side comparisons to feel valid. She was producing numbers the sport had never seen. Records kept falling. Crowds grew larger than some professional teams could draw. Entire arenas shifted their schedules just to accommodate the interest. And still, Geno held tight to the image of control, subtly reminding everyone that he believed he still ran the conversation. Behind the smiles and soft words, something else was showing through. It was insecurity, the kind that creeps in when the spotlight starts drifting and there is no lever left to pull. At first, the jabs stayed quiet. A comparison here, a reminder there, but eventually that act stopped working. The small digs were not enough anymore, and the frustration started leaking out in other ways. What began as sideways comments about Clark slowly turned into frustration aimed at the people backing her. The tone shifted. The restraint faded. The strategy had always been careful, light pressure instead of open resistance, but it could only hold for so long. By June of 2024, that patience was gone. During an interview on The Dan Patrick Show, Geno Auriemma crossed a line. Instead of keeping the focus on the player, he redirected his frustration outward. He stopped talking around Caitlin Clark and started pushing back against the wave of support surrounding her. That moment exposed what had been building underneath the surface the entire time. The narrative was no longer his to shape, and the loss of that control was becoming impossible to hide. Think about it for a moment. This is a Hall of Fame coach, a man stacked with national titles, someone positioned as the face of authority in women's basketball, a figure expected to lead with perspective and composure. Yet instead of embracing the momentum Caitlin Clark brought to the sport, he went after the very people fueling that momentum. His comments were sharp and dismissive. He attacked Clark's supporters, painting them as clueless and irrational, suggesting they did not understand the game and were somehow damaging it. All of that outrage stemmed from one thing. Fans believed Clark could finish in the top 4 of MVP voting as a rookie. To him, that belief was not optimism. It was something to mock. In his framing, Clark's fans were not passionate or hopeful. They were a nuisance. And in that moment, Geno Auriemma stepped over a line he could not step back across.
These people are so disrespectful and so unknowledgeable and so stupid that it gives women's basketball a bad name.
This was no longer basketball analysis. This was not a coach breaking down film or offering critique. It turned personal. Those comments were aimed directly at the wave of new energy surrounding Clark. The families filling arenas, the kids wearing her jersey, the casual fans tuning in for the first time because her game pulled them in. This was not just another opinion floating around. When Auriemma speaks, his voice carries weight, which made the moment even more revealing. By attacking her supporters, he was really attacking her rise. He was dismissing the idea that the excitement was real, that the numbers mattered, that the belief had a foundation. He positioned himself as the final judge, convinced time would prove him right. That is where the story flips. Caitlin Clark did not respond with words. No posts, no interviews, no public reaction at all. She did not need any of that. She answered the only way that mattered, on the court. What followed was not subtle. She won Rookie of the Year. She earned a spot on the All-WNBA first team. When MVP voting was announced, she finished exactly 4th, right where those fans had predicted from the start. The same fans who were labeled as uninformed ended up being right. That sequence did more than validate Clark. It stripped credibility from the criticism aimed at her. Every dismissive comment collapsed under real results. What was meant to diminish her movement turned into one of the most poorly aged takes in recent sports memory. The gatekeeper role he once claimed slipped away, replaced by the image of someone struggling to accept that the game had moved on without him. He brought it on himself, because Caitlin Clark's success was never just personal validation. It became collective validation. Every fan he mocked, every kid he brushed off as unrealistic, every new supporter he dismissed as clueless. As Clark kept rising, the truth became harder to avoid. He was not criticizing her fans because they were wrong. He was criticizing them because they were right. Revenge usually makes noise. It comes with arguments, headlines, and public back and forth. Clark's response was the opposite. It was quiet. That silence carried more weight than anything Geno Auriemma could say. She did not answer his remarks. She did not defend the people he insulted. She did not turn social media into a battleground. She did what she has always done. She played basketball. And the way she played turned every criticism into a contradiction. While Geno sat in studios questioning the hype, Clark was on the floor rewriting expectations. Night after night, she delivered performances that demanded attention. Deep shots from well beyond the arc, handles that froze defenders, passes that replayed for days. She was not just getting through her rookie season, she was defining it. When the awards arrived, they told the story without commentary. Rookie of the Year, All-WNBA first team. And then the final piece. 4th place in MVP voting, exactly where those fans had said she would land. Without ever raising her voice, Clark and the people who believed in her dismantled his credibility. He labeled them uninformed. They turned out to be accurate. He suggested they did not understand the game. Her play showed they understood it clearly. Each performance answered him. Each record reset the conversation. Every sold-out arena reinforced the same point. This was not manufactured buzz. It was real. And as Clark kept climbing, his earlier words aged badly. What once sounded authoritative began to sound defensive. What once came off as confidence started to resemble insecurity. He tried to frame himself as the final judge of talent, the voice that decided what mattered. Clark's rise exposed how little control he actually had. She did not seek revenge. She did not chase validation. She was never playing for his approval. She stayed true to herself, and in doing that, she revealed everything without ever having to say a word. That is the force behind silent revenge. It does not rely on volume or theatrics. It runs on outcomes. Caitlin Clark delivered those outcomes so clearly that there was no way around them. By the time her rookie season ended, the conversation had shifted. It was no longer about potential or promise. It was about how completely she erased the doubt that followed her. For Geno Auriemma, there was no exit. Every comment he made, every jab aimed at her supporters, came back with precision. The figure who once believed himself untouchable was exposed, and the person responsible never raised her voice. For most people, being proven wrong would have closed the chapter. You accept it and move forward. That was never going to happen here. By then, it had grown beyond Caitlin Clark as an individual player. She represented a change in control, a new center of gravity, proof that the sport he had dominated for decades no longer revolved around him. Instead of accepting that reality, Geno leaned into the only response he knew. He kept talking, interview after interview, podcast after podcast. Her name kept surfacing. The routine never changed. A measured compliment followed by a qualifier. A nod of respect paired with a reminder of his own importance. Each time, the focus drifted away from her play and toward his need to frame the moment. Eventually, the approach shifted even further. He stopped treating Clark as a singular talent and started trying to claim ownership of the movement surrounding her. In one interview, he suggested the surge in women's basketball was something his generation had already built. According to him, the popularity spike was not driven by Clark, but by years of groundwork laid by people like himself. Look at what that implies. Instead of acknowledging that Clark pushed the sport to new heights, he reframed it as the world simply catching on and attaching itself to her rise. The credit shifted away from her impact and back toward his legacy. That moment revealed the core issue. This was not about the game. It was not even truly about Clark. It was about influence, the ability to shape the story, the authority to decide where recognition lands, the need to stay central as attention moved elsewhere. He wanted to remind everyone that he was still the architect, that he was still relevant, that if Clark was soaring, it was because a structure he built allowed it. But the reality was already clear. The spotlight had moved, and no amount of reframing could pull it back. Here is the reality. Caitlin Clark did not ride anyone else's momentum. She was the momentum. She was not elevated by the system. She disrupted it. She did not wait for approval or permission. She built her own spotlight, and the audience followed naturally. That is what made Geno Auriemma's fixation so noticeable. He could not stop referencing her because he could not accept being left out of her rise. Every time her name trended, every time another record dropped, every time another arena sold out, it reinforced the same truth. She was doing it without him, without his program, without his validation. So he kept speaking, and the more he spoke, the clearer it became. Caitlin Clark was no longer just dominating games. She was occupying space in his thoughts. But words have limits. Eventually, commentary alone was not enough. Geno needed something tangible. He needed a way to tie her success back to himself.
I wanted UConn to recruit me. I always wanted Geno to call me just because he's Geno. Like, he's one of the best coaches of all time. Geno never called me. I have a chance to beat UConn on the biggest stage in front of 14.2 million people. Obviously, I was licking my chops a little bit.
To connect her star power to something that carried his imprint. That is where the $1 million offer entered the picture. By this stage, he had tried every angle. He dismissed her early. He talked down her supporters. He attempted to shape the conversation through comparisons and subtle put-downs. When that failed, he reframed her success as a byproduct of a system he claimed to have built. None of it slowed her momentum. Clark kept rising, and his influence continued to fade. Then a new opening appeared. On the surface, it looked like redemption, a chance to reposition himself, not just as a coach, but as a forward-thinking figure in the business side of the sport. The project was unrivaled, a new 3-on-3 basketball league co-founded by Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, with Geno deeply involved behind the scenes. The league had funding, it had buzz, it had ambition. What it lacked was a central figure, and that gap exposed the urgency. For all the recognizable names connected to the venture and all the talk about innovation, there was one truth that could not be ignored. There was only one player who could instantly legitimize it. One name powerful enough to pull attention, credibility, and momentum in a single move. There was only one player powerful enough to pull in the millions of fans who had just discovered women's basketball. One star big enough to carry an entire league on her back. That player was Caitlin Clark. After years of ignoring her, downplaying her impact, and throwing subtle shots her way, Geno Auriemma finally reversed course. He reached out. Reports later confirmed that Unrivaled made Clark an offer worth over $1 million for an 8-week season, one of the richest deals ever put in front of a women's basketball player. The irony was impossible to miss. The same man who never called her during recruiting was now extending a massive check, hoping she would be the face that saved his project. The same coach who spent years suggesting her hype was exaggerated was now trying to benefit from the very attention he dismissed. The same person who criticized her supporters was suddenly relying on those fans to buy tickets, stream games, and give the league legitimacy. The roles had completely flipped. Geno went from gatekeeper to pitchman, from power holder to someone needing a favor. This was not just about basketball economics. It was personal. Securing Clark would have allowed him to reshape the story. It would have let him reconnect her success to his influence and present her rise as something still tied to his world. In that scenario, control came back to him. But when the offer reached Clark, she did not see a golden opportunity. She saw pressure. She saw a move designed to pull her back into a system that had never fully believed in her. To her, it looked less like respect and more like desperation. A final attempt to reclaim relevance by attaching himself to her shine. The $1 million deal was meant to be a reset, a lifeline, a way for Geno to reposition himself at the center of the future he felt slipping away. He had the league, he had the resources, he had the platform. All that was missing was her signature. What he did not account for was how little she needed him. Clark did not pause. She did not negotiate publicly. She did not soften the moment with explanations. She declined. That single decision carried more weight than years of commentary, interviews, and dismissals. It shut the door cleanly. What was supposed to be his checkmate turned into the moment his lack of control was fully exposed. This was not just a business choice. It was a statement made without noise, and it landed harder than anything he had ever said about her. When Clark said no, she was not just turning down a contract. She was turning down him, his approval, his system, his last attempt to reshape her story into something that still revolved around him. That single decision sent a clear message. She did not need his league. She did not need his backing. She did not need validation from someone who never believed in her to begin with. She had already built her own lane, and she planned to keep moving forward without looking back. For Geno, the moment was devastating. The same man who once could not be bothered to make a phone call was now offering over $1 million, and she declined without drama. No public bitterness, no drawn-out explanation, just a firm, quiet decision. That kind of rejection hits harder than words ever could.
What's the score? We're down 6.
Start the second half in Cleveland, Ohio. Clark is going to spin away from traffic. Double screen, gets open, and hits. Clark, her three is good. Plus the foul. Clark, step back three. You bet.
With Clark gone, lost its centerpiece, its pull, its identity. That offer was never just about money. It was an admission. The league needed her far more than she needed it. When she walked away, the excitement surrounding the project faded almost instantly. Fans started asking what the league really had without her. Online, the reaction was brutal. People pointed out the irony. After years of dismissing her, he was left hoping she would save him. Clark ended what he thought was a long chess match with one move. She did not debate. She did not justify herself. She simply stepped away. That silence carried weight. The truth became impossible to ignore. Geno's era was winding down. His influence was no longer what it once was. Clark did not just take the spotlight. She removed the illusion of control. This moment was never about regret. Of course he regretted it. The bigger question was what it represented. What happens when an entire generation of coaches, executives, and power brokers realizes they are no longer the center of the sport? Clark's rejection was not just personal. It was a signal, a clear sign that the balance had shifted. Players no longer need permission to shine. They no longer need to fit into old systems to matter. They can build their own brands, command their own audiences, and walk away from massive offers without flinching. Geno was just the first to feel that shift directly. He will not be the last. Maybe the old saying had it wrong. Maybe revenge does not need heat or noise. Maybe the strongest response is quiet. One calm decision made at the right moment. Clark did not lash out. She kept winning. She kept growing. She kept building. And when the moment came that truly tested where the power lived, she answered without hesitation. This was never really about a contract. It was about control. For decades, the old guard decided who mattered in women's basketball. They set the path. If you wanted greatness, you had to go through them. That was the unspoken rule. Clark broke it. She did not need banners to define her. She did not need a legendary coach to legitimize her talent. She did not play by rules written before she arrived. She wrote her own. And by saying no to the person who once overlooked her, she proved something larger than any single deal. The future no longer belongs to gatekeepers. It belongs to the players. That is why this moment cut so deep. Geno's biggest mistake was not missing Clark early on. It was believing the game could not move forward without him. Now the sport is growing louder, bigger, and more global, and it is doing so without his fingerprints on it. Clark's decision marked a line between eras, between the past and what comes next. A reminder to every executive, coach, and decision-maker who still thinks control works the old way. Those days are over. This generation does not ask for approval. They do not wait their turn. They bring the fans, the attention, and the leverage with them. Clark showed how it is done without raising her voice. No demands, no speeches, just consistency and confidence. When the moment arrived to show who really held the power, all it took was one word. Now the question is not whether he regrets it. That is already answered. The question is, who will be next to underestimate the shift? Who will realize too late that the game has passed them by? The warning has already been delivered, quietly and clearly, and the future is no longer asking for permission. This is how the story ends. Not with noise, not with chaos, but with clarity. Caitlin Clark never needed revenge because the truth did the work for her. She did not tear anything down with anger. She built something so strong that the old structure collapsed on its own. One choice, one refusal, one moment that made it clear where the power really lives now. What started as doubt turned into dismissal. What turned into dismissal turned into obsession. And what ended it all was silence. No speeches, no explanations, just results that could not be argued with. Clark did not chase validation from the past. She invested in the future and kept moving forward while others were stuck looking backward. This was never just a sports story. It was a shift, a warning. Proof that the game no longer belongs to gatekeepers who think influence lasts forever. The next era is already here, driven by players who know their worth and are not afraid to walk away from anything that does not serve them. And this will not be the last time a powerful figure misreads the moment. It is only the first chapter of what comes next. If you want the stories they do not want you paying attention to, the power moves behind the scenes, and the moments that quietly change the game stay locked in with Courtside leaks. This is where the real game gets exposed. We've got every angle covered, every leak, every backstage twist, every moment they won't show you. Hit like, Subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video. Stay locked in with Courtside Leaks, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.